It all started with what was supposed to be a routine physical, you know? The kind where you go in, get poked and prodded, and then walk out with a clean bill of health for another year. That was the plan, anyway. I've always seen myself as a pretty solid, resilient guy, someone who just gets things done, no matter what. So, when my Dr. Evans called me back just a day later, suggesting I see an ENT, a small alarm went off, but I tried to push it down. The ENT, Dr. Hayes, was incredibly direct. She looked me right in the eye after reviewing the scans and said, "It looks an awful lot like lymphoma, but we need a biopsy to be sure." Then, almost as an aside, she added, "I don't mean to scare you, but there are more things pointing to it than not." I was numb. The words just hung in the air. Lymphoma. Cancer. My mind went straight to my two little girls, Lily, who was 3, and Clara, just 4 months old. 6 years of marriage to my wife, Sarah, and this. This was where life decided to throw a curveball. I called Sarah right after leaving Dr. Hayes' office. I remember struggling to get the words out, my voice thick with emotion. I was close to tears, really, trying to convey the gravity of what I'd just heard. And her response? She actually mocked me a little. Told me nothing was for sure, that I was being dramatic. Said I was making a big deal out of something that was only a possibility. It stung. It really did. I went back to the ENT's office, got the printout from the CT scan, the one that explicitly stated highly suspicious for lymphoma. I drove straight to my parents' house. We aren't super close, my mom and dad and I, but I knew they needed to know before they left for their cabin in the Catskills the next morning. They were devastated just by the possibility, and right away, they offered to help in any way they could. They've been true to that promise. When I got home, I just fell into my usual routine, the daddy thing, making dinner. Sarah didn't mention my call, didn't ask anything. I tried to bring it up, to tell her how scared I was, but she just looked right through me. It was like she was waiting for me to stop talking so she could go back to whatever she was doing. No reply, no comfort, nothing. Just a blank stare. The biopsy was scheduled for Monday. That whole weekend, I was terrified. Truly awful. But I didn't want to tell my friends, just in case it turned out to be nothing. So, I suffered in silence, a crushing weight all on my own. For the biopsy, I asked my parents to watch the kids, assuming Sarah would want to come with me. She absolutely lost it. She stood there, fuming, while I called my parents back to tell them we wouldn't need them after all. "I'll be fine going by myself," she insisted. So there I was, getting my neck cut open to remove a lymph node, alone. Afterward, needing a ride home, I had to call my parents again. They dropped everything. I came home from the hospital to find Sarah's entire family there. Her sister, Emily, and her boyfriend, Mark, had even come in from out of state. I couldn't face them. I mumbled something about it being a procedure for my clavicle, then excused myself and went straight to our bedroom. Of course, I was the insensitive one for not socializing. The next 2 days waiting for the results were endless. I gave up waiting, went for coffee, then found myself in a bookstore, just trying to escape into a story. I love to read, always have. That's where Nurse Brenda called me. "It's classical Hodgkin's lymphoma," she said, her voice gentle. "We'll see you at the cancer center on Friday." I called Sarah, fighting back tears. The words were a struggle, and I broke down sobbing a bit. When I finally finished, there was a beat of silence. Then, she asked, "How do they know?" Just like that. How do they know? I gathered myself, trying to explain pathology and biopsies, but inside, I was stunned. In less than a week, from the GP visit to this, she had denied, dismissed, and mocked me. And now, she couldn't even grasp the basic reality. All my fears, my concerns, my pain, it was just tuned out. She did agree to come to the initial oncologist appointment. Dr. Chen reviewed everything, including my PET scan. I literally glowed like a Christmas tree. He explained the treatment, ABVD, and all the side effects. Then we met with Nurse Brenda again, who was there to counsel us on what caregivers could expect. Sarah didn't participate. Not a word. She just sat there, quiet, disengaged. It became clear then that she didn't see herself as my caregiver. She didn't think any of that applied to her. For an entire hour, she didn't utter a sound. 2 months in, I'd had 4 chemo treatments. The energy drain was real. I got tired so quickly, but I was still trying my best, trying to pull my weight. About 3 weeks ago, after a long Sunday managing the kids and trying to tackle my never-ending to-do list, I hit a wall. I was slowing down, and Sarah started to pester me about the few remaining tasks. I've hit my limit, I told her. I'll help get the kids to bed, but I'm done. That was the first time she'd cried since my diagnosis. Sobbing, she unloaded on me. First, I do so much around here. I don't get any help. Completely ignoring the fact that I handle most of the childcare on weekends and cook every single meal, even her breakfast and lunch for work. Second, I'm tired, too. You know, I wish I could just stop and go to bed sometimes. Something I've never once done, no matter how exhausted I felt. And finally, I only ask you to do a few things, and you can't even do them. I called my old therapist, Dr. Miller, right then. My marriage has always been a struggle, I guess. The next morning, it hit me, I've been married to someone who's never truly supported me, who doesn't see marriage as a team. This wasn't the first time we'd had these issues, but I'd never been truly honest with myself about it. I always thought my hard work could make up for the gaps. Now, I saw clearly that I deserved better. I don't have a huge support network, not being close to my family, and Sarah had, over the years, managed to alienate most of my friends. That was a huge red flag I just missed. But I've started reaching out to a few close ones. Those relationships need some serious nurturing before I can lean on them. But I need someone by my side through this. I deserve someone who will give me slack after chemo, not expect me to be super dad when all I want to do is throw up and lie on the floor for 5 minutes. I've even talked to a couple of attorneys. My plan is to get through treatment with Dr. Miller's help, and then ask for a separation. Worst case, I get 50-50 custody of Lily and Clara. But given Sarah's absolute lack of support, I'm going to push for primary custody. Not out of spite, but because I truly believe I can prioritize their interests better than she can right now. After that initial burst of realization, I tried to talk to Sarah again. I used some of the insights I'd gained, trying to understand her perspective. How was she coping? How did she think I was handling treatment? I even tried to frame it as an opportunity for us to grow closer, to address long-standing issues, emphasizing how much I needed her to step up. I even brought up the very real possibility that I might die. She just didn't perceive there to be a problem. Our conversation was disappointing, unfrank. I could tell she felt better, though. She was all smiles afterward. Nothing really changed. The next Friday was another chemo day, so Saturday was a blur. Chemo was hitting me harder, faster. I was still watching the kids until midday, then collapsed for a nap. My 3-year-old, Lily, was finally down, and I went into our room. Sarah, 3 times in 30 minutes, somehow needed something from our bathroom, flying in and out, disrupting my attempt to rest. I put in my earbuds, tuned Spotify to white noise, trying to find some peace. After about an hour, she burst in again, literally whipping the door open, with both girls in tow. I was just trying to get along, you know? Maybe she just needed time to adjust. Sunday was worse. She was gone, somewhere in the house, for a huge chunk of the day. I was really suffering from chemo, just utterly depleted. I called my mom for help. Sarah absolutely lost it. She told me she could handle everything, that we didn't need help, and she'd be down in a few minutes. She never came. Not until hours later, when she held Clara for 10 minutes, handed her to me, then took Lily up for a nap. Then she took a 2.5-hour nap herself. I was beyond furious. When she woke up, refreshed and happy, I just handed her the baby. Without a word, I took off for my favorite nature trail near the Redwood National Park. It was fall, and the trees were beautiful. Even though I was exhausted, walking to the top of that small hill, sitting on a bench, it was worth it. When I got back to my car, my phone was full of texts from her, including a request to stop at the store. I just replied, no. I went to my parents' house to rest more and eat dinner, then came home to help get the kids ready for bed. The house was a disaster. Nothing had been done in the 3 hours I was gone. She still insisted she didn't need help, yet couldn't get anything done without me. That's when it really hit the fan. Lily was upstairs putting on her pajamas, so I figured, why not address the elephant in the room? Bad idea. I called her out for putting too much burden on me, for trying to stop me from getting help, like my mom coming over. I was upset, but not yet angry. Her response was pure rage. She pointed out she'd unloaded and reloaded the dishwasher for me, and made dinner, which was just reheating a meal I'd made the night before. This was usually my job. Then I got angry. I told her that wasn't enough, that I couldn't be the full-time babysitter on weekends. We argued for a solid 5 minutes about getting my family to help. To everything I said, she just screamed, "Go to hell. I hate you. You're the worst." I tried to keep my cool, but I know I took some shots, saying she thought too highly of herself, which is her biggest flaw. I was a jerk, yes, but I don't regret it. I meant every word. She expects too much. If she cared, she needed to show it, needed to give me time to recover from chemo. She truly doesn't do nearly as much as she believes. I was seeing red by then. You need to step it up, I told her. I can't keep doing this. I could die, and you're treating me like I have a cold. It was a little dramatic, sure, but there's a real chance, 10 to 15%, that I might not be here in 5 years. The box was open now. She knew I didn't think she did much, that I questioned her self-worth. It was an ugly, honest truth. Honestly, I feel more pity for Sarah than anger. She grew up with a narcissistic mother, and she's emotionally stunted. She's not equipped for this, but she's 36. She's had time to grow. I expect her to act like an adult. I don't want a divorce, but 6 years in, with no growth at all, it feels like it might be over for me. I've told her, bluntly, where I stand. She isn't willing to change. I still have at least 3 months of treatment left, and I just want to be around my kids as much as possible, just in case this really is it. Since that last argument, I finished treatment. Life is slowly getting back to some semblance of normal. I can run and cycle again, which is a huge relief. Physically, I'm pretty good, aside from some nagging long-term effects of the chemo. But hey, it beats the alternative. I'm still a ways off from being officially cancer-free, but things look promising. That period, last October through January, was incredibly tough. Chemo kept getting harder, and Sarah continued to be difficult. It became physically impossible for me to do all the things I usually did around the house: cooking, dishes, tidying, getting the kids ready for daycare and bed. That created a lot of tension. Day-to-day logistics simply aren't Sarah's strength, and it really stressed her out. Even basic things like cleaning up after a meal felt monumental to her. I do a lot around the house because I like order and healthy eating, so having to heap all that onto her was a lot, especially after just having Clara. Looking back, I also wasn't emotionally ready to tackle our relationship issues while dealing with cancer and my new, chemo-ravaged body. Seeing Dr. Miller helped immensely. Sarah isn't the only one to blame. I have my own issues. I'm terrible at asking for help. Not in a Superman way, but it's a serious limiting factor in every area of my life. I like things to run smoothly. I'll move heaven and earth to avoid tension, even when it means ignoring something that desperately needs to be addressed. I always saw this as a strength, but through chemo and therapy, I see how much I've been hurting myself and those around me. I don't want my kids to suffer because of my inability to be open. So now, I'm trying to be better about expressing when things aren't good, or when I disagree, no matter who it might upset. I'm not as mature as I thought. After that last argument, I gave talking to Sarah one more shot. I stated simply what I could and couldn't do, and that our marriage was at stake. I focused on taking care of myself and my kids, regardless of what she demanded. Initially, it was tense. But she did eventually accept that if I said I needed to rest, I was going to, whether it was convenient for her or not. We had some surprisingly positive discussions too. I explained how her attitude made something horrible even worse. How it wasn't just needing rest, but being physically unable to do things. She started to leave me alone when I left the room, stopped following and nagging. She even lightened up and had a pretty great attitude the last month of treatment. I could stay in bed all day if I needed to, without constant check-ins about whether I was good enough to help with the kids yet. And something else, something huge, came out. She admitted that having Clara, 2 months before my diagnosis, had been hard enough. But at that time, she'd also learned that having more children could endanger her life. Even though we'd informally decided against more kids, having the decision made for us so definitively hit her incredibly hard. It put her in a deep funk. I never knew she wanted more children, or that it affected her so deeply. She never showed it, never brought it up. But it makes complete sense. We're both emotionally immature, I think. You can decide who's worse. But we are in a better place now. Things are still rocky, and the core issues are still there, but at least they're out in the open. So, I'm sticking it out for now. I've seen how hard divorce is on kids through my cousins and friends. If I'm going to put Lily and Clara through that, I need to know I've exhausted every single effort to make this marriage work. Divorce is still a likely outcome, but this little bit of progress gives me some hope. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you realized just how much you had overlooked about your relationship?